Welcome to Empowered by Iron, hosted by Dr. Kristen Lander from Fiercely Fueled Nutrition Coaching and Mary Morton from Grad Gains, the online resource for your fitness needs. Together, we are empowered by iron.
Hey guys, it's Kristen. We have a really cool guest with us today. It's Cortney Batchelor. She's a 53 kilo weightlifter, two-time national champion. She's been on the world team, the Pan American team, and the university world team, and set the American record in the snatch at the most recent Olympic trials. Is that all right?
Sounds right. You guys have research.
So besides that, tell our listeners a little bit about you and what you do.
Well, like you guys said, my name's Cortney. I have a pet pig. Her name's Layla. I have 2 Rottweilers. My boyfriend is Colin Burns. I'm a weightlifter. I don't know if I said that or not. And I run a singlet business.
That's awesome. And so right now you're training at Juggernaut Training, right? Juggernaut Gym.
I just moved out there, or out here 2 months ago. Like 2 months ago today, actually, I think.
And so you moved from Alabama to Colorado to California.
Yeah, I moved from Alabama to Colorado 4 years ago, and then we just moved to California.
Settling in nicely?
Yeah, it's nice. It's not cold, and I enjoy that. So.
Yeah, I'm originally from Colorado, so I know the cold.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, like you stayed at the Olympic Training Center, right, in Colorado Springs?
Yeah.
Yeah, I lived like 10 minutes from there, so it's
really?
Yeah, small world.
Okay.
Small world.
Yeah, that's super small.
So, the Olympic Training Center actually recently just shut down, right?
Yeah.
And that's kind of why you made the move. So what are your thoughts on that? Like, how did that?
It's kind of a bittersweet thing for me. I think it's hard to say, like I was there for 4 years, so I think anyways, after that quad was over, I was going to move on. Mm-hmm. Because it closed down, they just kind of forced it a little faster than I would have liked.
You needed that closure.
Yeah, so it all happened really fast. But I think overall, I think it's going to be good for the sport.
That's good. Okay, so you did mention that you have a pig and that you have a company, and it's called the Snort Life Singlets.
Yep.
So how did you get started doing that?
So, a lot of people actually don't know this. So I probably the company's almost a year old, so probably 2 years ago. Well, like a year and a half ago, maybe. So have you guys seen pictures of my Wonder Woman singlet that I have?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So there is a lady that I found in Washington, I think, that makes like aerial costumes or something like that. And she made my singlet. She's made a few of my singlets that I have. And she, I'd always get questions about my singlet, blah, 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 whatever. And I was super, I wouldn't tell anybody about it. Can y'all hear her?
Yeah.
Sorry. So I wouldn't tell anybody where I got my singlet, blah, 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 whatever. And I actually contacted the lady. Sorry.
This is awesome.
It's okay at first, but she squeals really loudly.
I believe it.
So a year and a half ago, I contacted her, and I was tired of people kind of asking me about my singlets. I wanted to get her into weightlifting. I didn't want anything to do with it. I just wanted to introduce her to the world of weightlifting. I didn't want any money for it. I didn't want anything. I contacted her like 2 or 3 times, and she never wrote me back. And I told her, I was like, this is a huge market. I was like, this would be really good for you. I don't know how aerial costumes sell, I was like, but this is going to be a huge market. And I never heard anything from her since. So I was last year. Well, like most of last year.
Mm-hmm.
And my mom finally sent me my sewing machine out after 3 years. And I just kind of started playing around, whatever. And then one day I was like, oh, duh, let's make singlets. So I started doing that, and I didn't have, like I said, I didn't have any intention of like having a business or like starting a business. But like once I started making them, like all of these ideas just kept coming up, whatever. And then I put it together within like a month, 2 months, like a month and a half leading up to the American Open. And then I released the business at the American Open, and now I'm here.
That's awesome. I have seen several of your singlets in person, and they're amazing.
Seen them in person?
Yeah, I have a couple friends that have some of your singlets, or some people that I have lifted with. So
I hope they're okay.
they're fantastic. So for our listeners who don't know, Cortney makes some really cool singlets, and that's it's a really big barrier for women in our sport. I think like they don't want to get involved in our sport because they're like, oh, I don't want to have to wear a singlet. And now here you're like, these ladies are rocking some awesome stylish singlets.
Customized.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I have so many emails with people that are just like, I'm going into my first weightlifting meet, blah, 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 but I'm kind of hesitant because of the singlet. Like, every time I'm just like, all right, well, we're going to fix this. So, and then when they get it, it's just, like, they're super excited about lifting after that. Like, it's so crazy. I mean, I guess just because I've been lifting, in a singlet for 8 years, whatever, it's just so crazy to me that people are scared of them.
Right.
So, I'm trying my best to make sure people are.
Make sure they're comfortable doing the sport that you love.
Yeah. The singlet's not something you should have to worry. That's one of the last things you should have to be worrying about when you're lifting.
Right. Well, and I think that has a lot to do with just us in general, women in general, It's tight, it's clothing, and it's in front of people, and that's something that, we're not bikini competitors for a reason. It may not be something we're totally comfortable with.
But we want to look good.
Exactly. It's a lot of fun, and I definitely didn't think that it was going to get as big as it has. I have a wait list right now going into 2017, which is just so crazy to me. Like I had a year and a half ago, I had no intention of doing this at all.
So you were doing this, so you were injured last year, you said. So you were you were at the Olympic Training Center, but you were not training full-time, or you weren't training as much, or so how did this happen?
I switched to, I switched to one-a-days for, 6 months. And it wasn't like a one-a-day now. It was maybe an hour and a half at most. So I basically have the whole day to do whatever. I kind of picked it up.
You just filled your time with something that now is a business.
Yeah, and like I said, I didn't think it was going to get as big as it did. So.
Surprise.
Well, that's the thing in business, and Mary and I talk about this all the time, is like if you the most successful businesses are businesses that are solving a problem. So the problem was women needed singlets that they liked, and you solved that problem. So you're successful at it.
It's fun, and I try to give as many options as I can, to have a singlet for somebody that 100% describes just them, and like I made a singlet with a chihuahua print the other day.
That's awesome.
I don't like chihuahuas, but this chick had like 3 chihuahuas, and she loved it so much. I love it. I love it when I make something that like it describes that person, and they just 100% fall in love with it because they know that it describes them.
I love that. I absolutely love that.
It's a lot of fun. It's fun. It's for sure frustrating, because I do everything myself. But in the end, it's all worth it for sure.
So you started weightlifting in high school, I read, which I think is really amazing because I'm a master's athlete, and so I didn't really even start competing in weightlifting until I was master's. So I'm like so amazed that you found this in high school. So how did you find the sport of weightlifting at such an early age?
I think I started when I was 17, maybe. I played basketball in high school, and then I would do strength and conditioning in the off season to stay in shape for basketball. And the guy that was coaching me at the time, he already had a lifter that was competing in weightlifting, and she kind of got me into it, took me to a few meets here and there, and then I think like 6 months later I quit basketball and then started lifting. I don't have some crazy story of how I fell into it. I was just I wasn't thrown into it, but it was something that was just kind of there. And for like 2 years, probably like 3 years, 3 or 4 years, the first 3 or 4 years, I hated it. I still to this day could not tell you why I stuck with it. It was just, I was just so used to being an athlete, and that was the only like athletic thing that I was doing at the time, so I just stuck to it.
What did you hate about it? Do you know?
I honestly don't know. I honestly don't know.
So
I just didn't like it.
What made you fall in love with it? Because I think you love it now, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely still times that I hate it, but I think it was a long process for me to fall in love with it, you know? And I think I finally realized, I would say probably when I made my first junior world team, was when that's when I knew that I was supposed to be weightlifting. Because in Alabama, weightlifting's not big. It's never been big, and it's still not big. So there was a tiny community, a tiny weightlifting community there. And to me, I was doing the sport that like 10 people were doing, and that was it. But then when I moved to Colorado, and I went to the training center and everything like that, it all just kind of like opened my eyes to everything. And like it showed me that there's so much more than just, that tiny little gym with 10 people. And it opened up so many opportunities. Like my first junior world meet was it was in Malaysia. And that was the first
awesome.
time it wasn't the first time I'd ever traveled outside the country, but it was my first big trip. I was like, these things happen every year. Like, what am I doing? So yeah.
See, but that's kind of crazy for me, because in high school, I was also in basketball and volleyball and soccer, and I'd never heard about weightlifting until, like, recently. It was just, it was never shown to me. Actually, in my gym, or my class in high school, we had a weightlifting group, and I would always go, and I mean, like, lifting weights, not actual Olympic weightlifting. I was, like, the only girl in there. And the coach in there, the teacher, he would always let me get out of everything. And it always made me so mad. He's like, oh, Mary, you don't have to do the squats. I was like, but what if I want to?
Yeah.
So I was kind of like discouraged to do it. So it's crazy that you found it so young. I wish I had. Okay, so lifting is your career now, but how is that different from the days that you had a job and you lifted on top of it? Because I know a lot of our listeners, although their dream is to maybe be a professional weightlifter, they still have that full-time job. So, like, how does that differ now?
So when I first started weightlifting, I worked in the cath lab. I was a scrub tech. So I got to see all kinds of different heart procedures and everything like that, and I was like there hands-on, with the doctor. I was a doctor's assistant, whatever. And I took call as well. So like, I think two weekends out of the month, maybe a little less, maybe more, I don't know. I can't remember now. I was on call. So I had a beeper that I was carrying around with me, and I had to be within 30 minutes of the hospital at all times, and blah, blah, blah. And I was working 40, 50 hours a week, maybe.
Oh, goodness.
Give or take. And then I was lifting on top of that. I think, I was so new in the sport that for me, lifting at the time, it wasn't it wasn't a priority. My job and school at that time was a priority. So now being like a full-time weightlifter, it's a lot different, you know? And for a while when I was at the training center, I couldn't comprehend that it was my job, you know? And there were a lot of training sessions that I went in and I would lift and everything and kind of mess around, but I never took it, you know, super serious because it just never, I couldn't comprehend that it was my job.
Right.
But now, you know, being older and going to Worlds and Pan Ams and stuff like that, and, you know, now have competed at the Olympic trials, I don't know how to explain it. To me, it's as stressful as working in the cath lab.
Really?
Yeah, you're describing this like progression that I hear. Like, I'm like, oh, well, the things that you're talking about are things I think that a lot of young people go through, like their first real job. So like it sounds like you are kind of describing somewhat of that progression, I think. So I'm not surprised to hear you say that, like, yeah, it feels like a job.
I mean, it is, you know. Mm-hmm. I mean, we get paid for it. It's a real job, you know, and people just think that we just go in and just mess around, whatever, which sometimes we do, you know. But when it comes down to it, when we have these heavy training sessions, it's not. I mean, it's fun. It really is fun. But it has to be taken so much more seriously than, you know, a CrossFitter that's going in just lifting for fun.
Yeah, you're not a recreational lifter now.
Yeah, no, yeah, and that's a thing that, you know, people don't realize that are, you know, I guess not as
high caliber
level yet of weightlifting. Yeah. They just don't understand it, and, you know, people think that we're jerks in the gym or, you know, something like that. But it's, you know, it's literally our job, you know. And if we don't, you know, hit this total. You know, we're not making a team, or, you know, we're missing a number to get a bigger stipend. You know, so there's a lot of, you know, different things that go on.
So it shouldn't be taken as you're a jerk. It's just that you're focused, and a lot of people go to the gym and they don't train, right? They go to the gym to work out, and they're there kind of with their buddies.
Yeah, they go there, they go there, not to say that they're not, you know, as serious. They go there to train, whatever. But some people also go there, you know, to get out, to socialize, stuff like that, which is cool. You know, if that's what you want to do, that's what you want to do. But that's not why we're there.
Right.
You know?
Right. That's your livelihood.
Yeah. And a lot of people don't realize that. So hopefully I didn't sound like a jerk when I said that.
No, if it's your job, people don't think that if a doctor is super passionate about his job and he's in there focused, you know, well, that guy's a jerk for loving his job or doing his job well. That's just what you do. And it's just hard, I think, because a lot of people, no one is a doctor really for fun as a hobby, but people weightlift as a hobby and for fun. And so it's kind of hard to take something that's a hobby and realize that it's actually a profession.
Yeah.
Well, so how are things different for you now that Olympic Training Center closed, you moved to California? Is it like a huge difference, or is everything pretty similar in terms of what you're doing? And
well, I mean, we have a new training environment, new coach, all of that, new program. So all of that's different, but I mean, we still have kind of the same schedule. It's not, you know, too different. But I think training here, I think it's been a lot better than training at the training center. Because you don't have that, you know, pressure. Mm-hmm. You know, because we're always pressured at the training center to have to perform, whatever. And if you didn't, then there was a chance it could go, stay, whatever. But here it's just, there's not nearly as much pressure. And that's a huge weight lifted off my shoulders, for sure. So.
That sounds like that will be good for just your future as an athlete to not because I think people can only sustain that amount of pressure on them for so long before you have some negative effects from it.
Yeah, and I think,
especially, in any job, right? Like, in any job. Okay, so the real question is, why do you have a pig? Because I was that young kid, and I always wanted strange animals, so I had a herd of goats, and that was like my thing, and I had to sell them when I moved to the South, which was horrible for me.
Really? You had to sell them when you moved to the South?
I know. Well, they don't accept them in apartments, so I wasn't sure how to play that. So, tell us about your pig.
So she is a cross between a baby and a puppy. That makes sense. I mean, she's a forever 2-year-old.
That's awesome.
I always tell people always ask me why I have a pig, and I can never really give them an explanation. Like I've always wanted one, and they're actually really smart animals. They're up there with like dolphins and elephants and stuff like that. But sometimes I tell people that a pig is a unique animal, and I'm a unique person, so I need a unique pet. I can't talk now. But she's I don't know, she's just something that you have to see, she'll let you know when she's like a dog, she'll let you know when she's hungry, she'll let you know when she has to go outside, stuff like that. She's very vocal, she squeals, she screams, she does all that. Trying to think. You have to tuck her in at night. She'll come and tell you, like, hey, it's time to go to bed. We'll go down the hallway, go to bed. She'll go sit in her bed, and then she'll lay down and wait for you to cover her up and tuck her in.
That's adorable.
And she can't go, she will go to sleep eventually, but she'll pitch a fit for a good 20 minutes before if you don't tuck her in.
That's fantastic.
She's not, so you see all of these like tiny little mini pigs on the internet, and she's not that small. She's
a big pig.
Yeah, she's a big pig. She's like the size of a bulldog, but she's longer, and she weighs probably 80 pounds.
Big girl.
So, yeah, she's big. She's dense. That's why I tell people she's dense. She's really big though.
So how much can she squat though? No.
That's the real question.
Our show, Empowered by Iron, is really about how like women's everyday lives have been like directly influenced through training or the barbell or just strength sports. And so how has lifting like changed your life, either like physically or mentally or emotionally? Has it had any impact on you in your outside of the gym life?
Well, I can't wear normal clothes.
But really, is that a problem? Because gym clothes are pretty good. There's become quite a market for that.
I agree. Sometimes you want to wear a dress.
That's true, yeah.
No, but I was pretty skinny in high school. I always had really broad shoulders just because I got that from my dad. My whole family has really broad shoulders. So that was always an issue for clothing with me anyways. But now I'm just super jacked. So now it's, for clothes, it's really hard to find clothes sometimes. That's not really an issue. But so I'm from the South. So I'm, where I grew up, all of these girls are like these tiny little sticks with tiny little legs and tiny little arms. And then I walk in, people stare at me. And I can't tell you how many times when I go back home that I can hear people talking about, like, why does she look like that? Like, why are her arms so big? Blah blah blah, whatever. Guys love it.
They're probably like, show me your guns.
Yeah, like girls back home, they're just girls aren't supposed to be strong and blah, 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 and all that. It's never, are you a weightlifter or whatever. It's always like, did you do gymnastics?
Yeah, or cheerlead. That's the other one.
Yeah, no, I didn't.
I had my doctor, so I told her that I lifted weights, and she's known this for the 3 years that I've seen her. She asked me the other day, she's like, aren't you afraid of getting bulky? And I was like, I think this is about as bulky as I'm going to get, but thanks for your concern.
People just don't understand.
Well, that's part of why we started this podcast, is because, women, the comments that people make about women that lift weights, are a little absurd sometimes. And then this whole idea that we're supposed to, be, little incapable human beings, as opposed to, independent and strong and be able to do stuff on our own, and who cares if we have huge quads or big arms, that just makes us better at the thing that we love to do. But that's a huge issue, I think, for women in this sport.
Yeah, and I mean, especially in weightlifting, look at Morgan King. She's smaller than I am. She's super jacked, but still, she's this tiny little person, and she's strong as shit. Right. There's nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that at all. And people just, that frustrates me. People just don't understand. And there's so many, even if you're a super, who cares? You're super strong, and if you love who you are, then so what?
Well, it sounds like weightlifting has really kind of helped you become just confident in your body and your self-image, and you're not concerned at all with what anyone else thinks.
Yeah, I definitely don't care what people think about me. I hear people, like I said, when I go home, I've heard people talk about me and how my build and how I look and everything like that. I don't care. The people judge so fastly. Is that
Fastly. It's a word now.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, sorry.
But what they don't realize is people like you and Morgan King and Sarah Robles, those two were Olympians, and you're an Olympic hopeful, and that they just don't understand that. That's something you're working towards, and that's a huge deal. You look at people like Michael Phelps, and I think he's a great athlete, but it's okay for him to look the way that he is, but all of a sudden it's a girl, and you're like, oh, did you mean to have biceps like that? And you're like, yeah, I actually like them. They make me feel pretty. Thank you.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so final question, if you were to go back to younger you and give some advice to yourself that may be applicable to other women, what advice would you give your younger self, knowing what you know now? Whether it be lifting, business, whatever.
Well, I would for sure tell her to not be scared to say no. That's a big thing, because I always tell people, especially beginners, there's no need to be scared to say no. But I think mainly I would say just kind of to trust the process of weightlifting. Especially your first few years, you're gonna see a lot of changes, physically, mentally, and you just have to trust that.
Right.
And you have to trust the process, trust the program for sure. You have to trust the program, trust the coach. In order for you to succeed. And it took me a while to realize that. But if you don't have confidence in your coach or your program, you're setting yourself up for failure already. And I've learned that the hard way, for sure.
That's some good advice.
That's really good advice. I think all coaches listening will be happy to hear someone say that.
Yes. All right.
It sounds too stupid.
No. So, Cortney, why don't you tell our listeners where they can find you, and then where they can find your singlet business?
Find me. I'm on Instagram. My personal page is I'm 53 Batch. BATCH. And then my Instagram or my Singlet page is the Snort Life Singlets.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh, and on my Snort Life Instagram, I started doing a lot of Layla videos, so you can see a day in the life of Layla.
The pig.
So,
Love it.
Pig. Yeah,
Layla the pig.
her pig things.
Well, thank you so much for being on. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me.
If you like what you heard today, please help us connect with other female badasses. We would love if you would leave us a review on iTunes, tell your friends about us, visit our website, which is empoweredbyiron.com. You can find each of us on Instagram. Mary is at MaryMo_92, and Kristen is at Kristen with an I, Lander. Future topics will include nutrition, programming and training, mental health, and just general female badassery.
Yeah, so let us know what you want to hear. If you have any input, that'd be awesome. And guys, this is Empowered by Iron. We want it to be a resource and an outlet for women who are finding their confidence, their independence, and their strength through iron. So thank you for listening. Thank you for checking in. And until next time, I'm Mary.
I'm Kristen.
And this is Empowered by Iron.